I was afraid to go to school every day. School was not a safe place for me. When people treated me that way, for no reason, it really hurt.
Because he loved theater and the arts, jocks picked on Kris Carberg. Bullying was an everyday part of his world, a world he wanted to escape, but never could. When he graduated from high school and went to college, he found his escape the day he took 2 prescription migraine pills instead of 1.
I didn't expect the feeling that I got from it. And so when I took my first 2 pills together, it was the first time I ever had experienced a high.
Kris began taking more and more pills. He began to shop for doctors and made up symptoms to get the medication.
I felt like I had control over my surroundings, and I couldn't be stepped over and stepped on anymore. I felt like I had power. I wanted to feel that every moment of every day. And so to keep it up, I had to keep taking more and more and more pills.
During his sophomore year in college, Kris was up to 60 Vicodin a day. He was barely functioning.
I first knew I had a problem when friends began to ask me questions about if I'd meant things that I said, where they would say, "Kris, did you mean what you said to me last night?" And I honestly have no clue what I said. I also knew that I was starting to have a problem when I started having physical effects. I started nodding off in public. I would just start to almost fall asleep standing up.
In a matter of months, he blew through $20,000 of savings from his parents and opened up credit cards to pay for his habit.
All of the pills were delivered by one of the shipping companies. I would be waiting for a delivery, and I would nod off. I'd fall asleep waiting for it, and then I'd realize that I'd missed it. And there were numerous times where I chased down FedEx trucks and UPS trucks all over town trying to find the one that had my shipment in it.
One day, Kris went to an internet cafe. He logged on and passed out. When he woke up 4 hours later, he discovered the employee had called the police. The officer discovered Kris's stash of prescription drugs.
I see the police officer calling in for something on his radio. And I start to get nervous and I start to try and get up. And he comes over to me and says, "No, you just stay there." The next thing I remember, I was in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And then I passed out again.
Kris woke up in the hospital. His parents were there and told Kris that he had nearly died.
The moment I decided that this was going to be over was when I saw my father cry. And he looked at me and said, "You know, I didn't think I'd have to deal with this kind of stuff with you." And it was the first time I cared to really say, "Look what I'm doing to the people I love."
He went to detox, committed to regular rehab meetings, and stayed off the meds. But he was miserable.
There was still a feeling that something wasn't connecting for me. There was still a feeling of loneliness, still a feeling of hurt. I felt that there was still something missing.
Then a friend introduced Kris to a young woman who had something in her life that Kris wanted.
I had never met anyone in my whole life like Jenna. She was smarter, stronger, balanced in so many ways for such a young person. And so I was leaving college as she was leaving high school. And yet she had this strength that I had never seen in anyone. I knew Jenna was a Christian without her saying a word.
Kris started going to church with Jenna. After a few months, Jenna invited him to speak to her father, Scott, a Sunday school teacher for 20 years.
When I first met Kris, I was impressed by his intelligence, by his inquisitiveness, and by, oddly enough, his humility, because he truly was looking for truth. He was looking for what he should be doing as a person. He was taking everything that we talked about, he was absorbing it, and he was asking more questions.
Scott began to talk to me about God, and I spent 4 and 5 hours questioning him on his faith. Scott personified Christ to me by how he acted.
Kris says he went home after he talked with Scott and prayed to accept Jesus Christ into his life.
I wasn't accepting Jesus because of Jenna. I wasn't accepting it because of Scott. I accepted Jesus for me. I read the whole Bible front to back. I did not want to stop knowing him better and better, and I would go to church with Jenna, but it was for a different reason. I had gone to church now for Jesus. All of the things that I felt I was different, or I felt that people didn't love me or like me, or that I needed to earn their love, all of that changed because he loved me without me doing anything.
A few months later, Jenna and Chris married. Today, Chris is an online social media director and has launched a website called Holy Pop to help others get the answers about Christianity.
I owe everything to Jesus Christ. He has given me a whole new life. He's given me my wife. He's given me hope. He's given me answers. And that I don't ever have to question whether or not someone cares anymore or if I'm alone. There is nothing that can depress me or hurt me as long as there's Jesus Christ.